Skinted by Revlon. Cherished by women as one of the world's 7 great fragrances.
Imagine this. You wake up, glance in the mirror, and notice the faintest line beside your eye. It's barely there, but your mind immediately whispers, you're aging. And not in the wise, elegant goddess of the time way. No, in the wrong way. You'll scroll through your feed. A 22-year-old influencer is injecting preventative Botox. Another is selling a $150 serum that promises to reverse the clock. A celebrity is going viral not for her talent, but for how young she looks at 50. Aging isn't just something we notice anymore. It's something we fear, something we fight. But here's the thing, this fear isn't natural, it's scripted, it's strategic, and it's ancient. From Cleopatra's milk baths to medieval elixirs, from 1950s anti-wrinkle creams to today's multi-step retinal routines, the obsession with youth has always followed women. But it's more than vanity, it's about survival. Because in every era, a woman's youth has meant power, value, and relevance. And aging, a slow fade into invisibility. We live in a culture that celebrates youth and disguises it as wellness. In your 20s, you're told to invest in your skin. By your 30s, you're already behind. By 40, you're sold a $1,000 fix to stop what's inevitable. And somewhere along the way, you start to wonder, when did growing older become a moral failure? In this video, we're going to unpack the cultural panic, because the fear of aging isn't personal, it's historical, it's political, and most of all, it's profitable. Let's take a journey through time, from ancient rituals to modern marketing, to uncover where the myth of eternal youth began and why it still haunts us today.
Now, a word from our sponsor.
You know how some mobile games are just okay? Well, this is different. I've been playing the #1 free solitaire game in the world, Solitaire Grand Harvest. And now, the Smurfs are here. Yep, the Smurfs. It's not just classic solitaire anymore. Solitaire Grand Harvest is a full-on, riveting farming adventure. You win solitaire levels, grow crops, and help the Smurfs rebuild their village. It's honestly such a satisfying loop. It's relaxing, yet super rewarding. Greedy Smurf and Sunny the Squirrel, they're icons. And yes, you get your own Smurf pet. I'm currently raising mine. But seriously, it's so fun, and you can even collect ingredients, cook cozy little dishes, and dig up lost items with your farm animals. It's immersive, ad-free, and completely free to play. If you're into games that are chill but give you goals and great vibes, this is the game for you. Download Solitaire Grand Harvest now using the link in my description, or scan the QR code on the screen, and trust me, solitaire never felt so good. Chapter 1. Beauty as Power in the Ancient World. Our story begins in the ancient world, where beauty was never just about aesthetics. It was about survival, status, and power. Cleopatra, the last active ruler of Egypt, remains one of history's most iconic figures of female authority. Legend has it she bathed in donkey milk to keep her skin youthful and radiant. Whether that's true or not isn't the point. Cleopatra's image, seductive, elegant, was as politically useful as her intelligence and diplomatic skill. In a world ruled by men, her beauty became a tool for negotiation, manipulation, and myth-making. Youth in her case was a form of control. And this wasn't unique to Egypt. Across ancient civilizations, from Mesopotamia to India to Greece, beauty was deeply entangled with divinity and womanhood. In Greek mythology, goddesses like Aphrodite and Hera were immortal not just in lifespan, but in appearance. They were eternally youthful, their ageless beauty tied directly to their power. Even mortal women were most valued at their peak, a term still used today to describe the moment when a woman is suddenly at her most desirable. Unsurprisingly, this is often aligned with reproductive viability. Youth equaled fertility, and fertility equaled value in patriarchal, lineage-obsessed societies. Meanwhile, older women were relegated to the realm of the symbolic other. Consider the crone archetype in folklore. An old woman, often isolated, sometimes magical, frequently feared. Think Baba Yaga in Slavic tales, or the three fates in Greek mythology. These women weren't beautiful anymore, and that made them either irrelevant or dangerous. Aging stripped them of desirability, but often imbued them with something else. Wisdom, mystery, and even supernatural power. And that power, it scared people. The trope of the witch is perhaps the clearest example. Witches historically were often older women who lived alone, owned property, or practiced healing. In other words, women who had outgrown their traditional roles as wives or mothers had no longer fit within society's narrow expectations. Their independence made them threatening, and since they no longer embodied the ideal of youthful, docile femininity, they became villains. This double bind has always haunted women in power. If they age, they lose cultural capital. If they resist aging, they're vain or manipulative. Beauty, when framed as a woman's main currency, becomes both a crown and a cage. In essence, the ancient world laid the groundwork for our modern obsession. When a woman's value is externally measured, tied to her skin's smoothness or her waistline's width, it's no longer that aging feels like erosion. But this fear didn't start in a Sephora aisle. It started centuries ago, when myths were written and social structures were built to reward and punish age, especially in women. So when we ask today why we're afraid to age, we're not asking a question, we're echoing one that's been whispered for thousands of years. And have you ever thought about aging as a loss of power, rather than just a change of an appearance? How do you think these ancient myths still influence how we see older women today? Chapter 2, The Rise of Age Phobia in the Modern Era. As we move into the Enlightenment and Victorian eras, the perception of aging, particularly for women, only grows more rigid and clinical. While older men were often seen as wise and distinguished, women began to experience a new form of societal scrutiny, not only from peers but increasingly from doctors, philosophers, and cultural authorities. The body, once the site of beauty and reproduction, was now treated like a medical specimen, an object of study, diagnosis, and correction. The 19th century saw a surge in pseudo-medical narratives that framed aging in women as pathological. Female hysteria became a catch-all diagnosis for anything from mood swings to sexual disinterest, and menopause, once considered a natural life transition, was rebranded as a form of decline. Entire medical texts argued that postmenopausal women were prone to mental instability, emotional volatility, and physical decay. A woman over 40 was no longer seen as a full participant in public life. Her loss of fertility was equated with loss of function, biologically, sexually, and socially. She was in effect erased. This period also ushered in the industrialization of beauty. Advances in chemistry and mass production meant that cosmetic products, once the privilege of royalty or the wealthy, became available to the rising middle class. Cold creams, wrinkle erasers, and skin tonics promised to restore youth and revive faded beauty. The language was always framed in loss, something precious slipping away, something shameful being exposed. These products didn't just sell skincare, they sold hope, panic, and self-surveillance. At the same time, a new technology was revolutionizing how people saw themselves: photography. Before the camera, most people rarely saw the reflection, aside from polished metal or the occasional mirror. Painted portraits, too, were aspirational, often idealizing or stylizing their subjects. But the photograph, it didn't lie, or at least it was believed not to. For the first time, people could watch themselves age. Time wasn't abstract anymore, it was visual, literal, and permanent. A wrinkle in a photo became a flaw frozen in time. And just as photography captured age, it also amplified youth. Images of young, glowing women began to flood print culture on postcards, in advertisements, and in catalogs. The youthful female face became the visual shorthand for beauty and modernity. By the late 1800s, department stores were showcasing beauty counters, specifically marketed to women looking to recapture the looks of their younger years. These spaces were less about indulgence and more about correction, a place to fix what aging had done. The 1920s, often celebrated as a liberated era for women, brought its own age-related contradictions. The flapper with her short bob, slender frame, and rebellious attitude symbolized freedom and youth, but crucially she was always young. The sexual revolution of the Jazz Age didn't extend to other women. It excluded them. Beauty was now defined by youthful rebellion, not maturity or experience. If you weren't young, you weren't part of the movement. Meanwhile, a new force was shaping public consciousness: the motion picture industry. Hollywood in its golden age cemented an unforgiving standard for what feminine beauty should look like: smooth, symmetrical, and perpetually youthful. Aging actresses, no matter how talented, were quickly pushed aside to make room for fresher faces. Stars like Mary Pickford and Greta Garbo, icons in their time, often retired before their 40s, not because they lacked ability, but because their maturing appearance no longer aligned with the fantasy Hollywood was selling. It wasn't just about appearances, it was about marketability. Youth sold movie tickets, youth sold products, youth became the economy of female desirability. And in a culture that increasingly equated visibility with value, older women began to disappear from the screen, from advertising, and eventually from public discourse. If you weren't seen, you weren't significant. This era marked a profound shift. Aging was no longer simply a natural part of life. It was a problem to be solved, and the solutions were everywhere, in jars, in spas, and surgical instruments. The phrase aging gracefully started to circulate during this time, but it often came with an asterisk, graceful as long as you didn't look your age. But by the mid-20th century, this fear of aging had woven itself into nearly every facet of modern life. It shaped how women were portrayed in film, how they were marketed to in magazines, and how they viewed themselves in the mirror. This wasn't just an individual fear, it was a collective anxiety, a deeply embedded belief that growing older, especially for women, was something to mourn, not celebrate. And when was the first time you felt like aging was something to fear instead of embrace? Was it a moment, a comment, or a photo? And how did it make you feel? I think growing up, I was always obsessed with that movie Death Becomes Her, and I watched it all the time, and I think it made me have a weird association with aging in some ways. Chapter 3, 20th Century Advertising and the Birth of Anti-Aging. If the 19th century medicalized aging, the 20th century turned it into a marketing goldmine. The post-World War II era marked a cultural and economic shift that would shape the modern beauty industry forever. America was entering a period of unparalleled prosperity. The war was over, soldiers were home, suburbs were expanding, and consumerism was booming. In the new world of modern convenience and domestic bliss, women were encouraged explicitly and aggressively to return to their roles as wives, mothers, and keepers of the home, and to do it all while looking effortlessly beautiful and eternally youthful. This was the moment when anti-aging moved from being a quiet concern to a billion-dollar business model. Beauty was no longer just about enhancing your features. It became a form of social duty. A wrinkle wasn't just a wrinkle, it was a warning sign. A sign that you were slipping, that you were letting yourself go, that you were failing to uphold your feminine identity. Language shifted dramatically during this era, where earlier beauty products had to emphasize care or nourishment, cold creams, floral tonics, and natural oils. The 1950s ushered in a more militant vocabulary. Suddenly, women were being told to fight aging, to defend their youth, to combat the visible signs of time. Your skin wasn't something to care for, it was a battlefield. Magazines like Good Housekeeping, Ladies' Home Journal, and Vogue became ground zero for this new doctrine. Ads from brands like Pond's, Max Factor, and Elizabeth Arden promised miracles in a jar. Erase 10 years in a week. Stop aging in its tracks. Don't let your face give you away. These taglines weren't subtle. They were loaded with judgment and urgency. And while they sold creams and serums, what they really were selling was anxiety. The mid-century aesthetic was built on perfection. Think of the immaculately styled housewives of the 1950s advertisements. Not a hair out of place, always smiling, always youthful. Even older women were expected to look young, but not too young. The ideal was a kind of agelessness, mature enough to be responsible and respectable, but physically untouched by time. This impossible balance became the blueprint for the modern anti-aging fantasy. By the 60s and 70s, science entered the scene. Dermatologists and cosmetic surgeons began offering more clinical solutions, chemical peels, dermabrasion, and now the iconic facelift. What had once been reserved for celebrities or whispered about in private became accessible to the middle-class women. Looking young was no longer just an aspiration, it became an expectation. And then came the rise of television and the golden age of celebrity endorsements. Stars like Joan Crawford, Audrey Hepburn, and later Jane Fonda were celebrated not only for their talent, but for their seeming ability to defy time. Their youthful appearance was paraded as proof that aging could be managed as long as you used the right products, underwent the right procedures, and stayed committed to the ritual of beauty. But here's the trick. The images we were given of ageless women weren't real. These women were meticulously styled, professionally lit, and increasingly airbrushed. Even in an era before Photoshop, Hollywood and fashion photographers knew how to manipulate light and film to smooth skin and soften features. The women on magazine covers didn't actually look like that, and yet these images became the standard against which real women judged themselves. What's more, this era solidified the idea that a woman's worth was inseparable from her appearance. While men were praised for aging gracefully, developing gravitas, silver hair, laugh lines, women were expected to raise the evidence of time. The double standard wasn't just cultural, it was institutional. Older women struggled to find work, particularly in media, while older men continued to anchor newscasts or star in romantic films opposite women half their age. The psychological effect of this messaging was profound. Aging became a private shame, something to be managed discreetly or better yet, prevented altogether. Women internalized the idea that their value had an invisible expiration date. A wrinkle wasn't a mark of wisdom, it was a flaw, a failure, and a forecast of social invisibility. And all of this conveniently distracted from larger systemic issues. The beauty industry didn't just profit from anti-aging, it thrived on women's insecurities. If you're busy spending time, energy, and money on erasing fine lines, you're less likely to challenge the cultural structures that define those lines as problematic in the first place. The anti-aging narrative isn't just about beauty, it's about control. This is where we start to see the industrialization of self-doubt. Every wrinkle, every sag, every age spot became a marketing opportunity. And as medical advancements grew, so did the arsenal, retinoids, injectables, collagen fillers. The promise was no longer just to slow aging, but to stop it entirely. But at what cost? And have you ever bought an anti-aging product and later wondered who taught me to fear this in the first place? Do you remember the first ad, message, or moment that made you feel like aging wasn't something you had to fix? I mean, because I work in a medical aesthetics clinic, I feel like I'm surrounded by this kind of like rhetoric. It is hard seeing it every day and then like talking to people that feel like they need to fix something. Chapter 4, the wellness industry, Botox, and the new age of prevention. Today, we don't often hear the term anti-aging shouted from the rooftops like we did in the 50s. It's been rebranded, softened, and modernized. Now it's wellness, skin longevity, or youth preservation. The rhetoric has shifted, but the message is the same. You are running out of time, and we have the solution. The tools are just more expensive, more high-tech, and now infused with language of empowerment. We've entered what could be called the age of prevention. It's not enough to age gracefully, a phrase that once implied letting time run its course with dignity. Now you're expected to prevent aging altogether. The wrinkle, that's your fault for not using retinol at 22. The dark circles, should have invested in an LED mask. And Botox, that's no longer something to try at 50. It's the 25th birthday gift. An early defense in the war against time. This shift is particularly evident on platforms like TikTok, where a new generation of women and skincare enthusiasts break down complex routines featuring niacinamide, peptides, and $400 serums. 20-somethings inject neuromodulators marketed as baby Botox before any signs of aging even appear. The goal isn't to correct visible lines, it's to stop them from even forming altogether. In this world, natural skin is no longer the baseline, it's a problem to be managed. Ironically, this hyper-preventative mindset is framed as self-care. Taking control of your future face, owning your routine, investing in long-term beauty portfolio. But beneath this language of empowerment is the same fear that's haunted women for centuries, the fear of becoming irrelevant, invisible, or unworthy as time marches on. Even the term wellness is a slippery one. On the surface, it suggests health and balance, but increasingly, it's used to disguise the same ageist ideals in a more palatable terms. Anti-aging sounds aggressive, wellness sounds wholesome, yet both funnel women into a relentless regime of consumption. Supplements, collagen powders, jade rollers, and gua sha tools, hormone balancing kits. The implication, you can live forever, or at least look like it, if you just buy the right things in the right order. This is where wellness culture starts to mimic tech culture. Everything is about optimization. You're told to biohack aging, to reverse cellular decline, to treat your body as a startup you must scale to perfection. Wrinkles aren't just skin deep, they're now viewed as indicators of failure or poor planning. I'm not investing in your future self. Aging becomes a personal responsibility, even a moral failing. If you age badly, it's your fault. What's particularly disturbing is how normalized all of this has become. In the 1990s, Botox was reserved for wealthy celebrities and was often met with mockery and suspicion. Today, it's as routine as getting a manicure for upper middle class women in urban centers. Walk into a med spa and you'll find maintenance plans, offering injectables bundled with facials, laser resurfacing, and lymphatic massages. You're not fixing anything, just keeping up. It's maintenance, like oiling your car. The irony, of course, is that even with its high-tech arsenal, anxiety around aging is higher than ever. Face filters smooth our features beyond recognition. Beauty apps let you preview your face post-procedure. The average woman sees hundreds of altered images per day, many of them posted by influencers who, while preaching authenticity, are selling sponsored skincare routines under layers of digital touch-ups. We're expected to present an illusion and maintain it as though it was real. Even within wellness spaces that claim to be progressive and body positive, the obsession with use persists. Take the popularity of hormone optimization and biohacking programs. programs, often marketed towards women in their late 30s and 40s. These programs promise energy, libido, and glow, all coded language for reclaiming youth. The body isn't celebrated for aging, it's treated like a machine that's malfunctioning and needs an upgrade. And then there's celebrity culture. Look at figures like Jennifer Lopez, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Kim Kardashian. These women have effectively monetized agelessness into a brand. They credit their glow to green juice, SPF, while quietly investing in lasers, injectables, and more. The issue isn't that they choose to look young, it's that the public is expected to believe that aging naturally can look like that if you work hard enough. It reinforces a cruel illusion that the aging process is a choice, and if you age visibly, you're simply failed to try. This illusion is not harmless. It fuels a culture where girls as young as 14 are asking dermatologists about Botox, where mothers and daughters get filler in the same clinic, and where lines and pores are treated as red flags, not facts of life. The $60 billion global beauty industry thrives on this insecurity. It doesn't care whether the fear of aging is spoken or silent, it just needs to exist. And as we sink deeper into this culture of preventative care, we must ask ourselves, is this really empowerment or just a prettier form of control? Because when the bar is perfection and the goal is to never age, there's no finish line, just an endless treadmill of spending, scanning, and self-surveillance. Chapter 5, Rejecting the Myth. Is aging making a comeback? And here's the good news. The myth of eternal youth is beginning to crack, slowly, subtly, but undeniably. Women are starting to push back. After decades of being told to hide, fix, or erase the signs of age, a quiet rebellion is emerging, one wrinkle, one gray hair, and one bare face at a time. In social media, where the illusion of perfection once reigned supreme, a different kind of visibility is growing. Creators over 40 and 50 are building loyal audiences, not pretending to be ageless, but being real. They show skin that moves, smiles that crease, and eyes with years behind them. These creators aren't trying to look 25. They're showing you what 45, 55, and 65 actually look like when women stop apologizing for it. And audiences are responding. There's a hunger for authenticity, for representation, and for a future that doesn't involve hiding behind filters and injectables. Celebrities too are beginning to rewrite the narrative. Andie MacDowell's decision to embrace her natural gray hair, on red carpets no less, was treated as radical, even though it was simply honest. Helen Mirren continues to be cast not as a caricature of an aging woman, but as a full, vibrant human being. Viola Davis, who has always defied the industry expectations, speaks openly about aging, not as a liability, but as a badge of experience and growth. These women just aren't making spaces for older women in the media. They're refusing to shrink into the margins. In the beauty industry, we're always seeing subtle but significant shifts. Brands like Dove, known for its real beauty campaigns, Glossier, which was built on the appeal of fresh, dewy skin, are now starting to feature women of varying ages in their ads. Models with visible crow's feet, hands with sunspots, smiles that tell stories. It's not mainstream yet, but it's happening. And while we must be cautious of how corporations co-opt authenticity for profit, visibility still matters. Representation isn't the full solution, but it's definitely a start. Fashion too has joined the conversation. The return of quiet luxury and minimalism has paved the way for older models to re-enter the spotlight. Gray hair, once seen as something to die away in secrecy, is now a style statement. But let's not get too comfortable, because the progress is still conditional. Society may be slightly more open to aging women, but only under certain terms. You can have wrinkles as long as you're still slim. You can have gray hair as long as you're still glowing. You can age as long as you do it well. The standard for what aging gracefully means is deeply rooted in youth. Retain your energy, maintain your sex appeal, and avoid decline. Women are still expected to be youthful in spirit and appearance and health, even as the years go by. In other words, you're allowed to age as long as you don't look like you are. True liberation, however, means more than making a space for older women to look like younger women. It means fundamentally redefining what aging is. Not a loss of beauty, but a shift in it. Not a failure of the body, but a testimony to its resilience. Not something to hide, but something to honor. It means accepting that beauty doesn't have to be preserved in amber. It can evolve, it can stretch, often deepen. It can mean a face that lived through love, heartbreak, laughter, illness, and joy. Aging is, at its core, a privilege. It means time, it means experience, it means having lived long enough to learn who you are, even in a society that tries to erase you from the picture. Every wrinkle is a sentence in your story. Every silver strand is a sign you made it through something. The shame we've been sold for over centuries is what distorts the truth. Shame is what makes a woman panic over her smile lines, not because they're unattractive, but because she's been taught they signify irrelevance. Shame is what makes aging feel like a failure rather than a natural process. And it's that shame we must reject, not the aging itself. From Cleopatra's mythical milk baths to TikTok's preventative Botox, the fear of aging has traveled with women through centuries. But it's never just about appearance, it's about control. In every era, a woman's youth has been equated with her value, her desirability, her visibility, her voice. And so aging naturally became something to dread, not because it made us less beautiful, but because it's made us feel less seen. We've been told that beauty is about maintenance, that youth is something you can purchase, preserve, or fake if you just have the right products and the right procedures and the right kind of face. But this belief system didn't appear overnight. It was built and marketed for decades. But the truth is, aging isn't a problem to be solved, it's a story written. Your face holds every chapter you've lived through. The sunbasked skin, the tears you cried, the nights you laughed so hard that your stomach hurt, the wisdom you've earned, the battles you've fought, sometimes quietly, sometimes not. These aren't things to hide, they're things to honor. And we're living in a turning point where women are choosing visibility over invisibility and not having that fear anymore of aging. So it's interesting to see where the industry's going. I mean, I feel like with people like the Kardashians and social media, there's always going to be that stigma, and then people are always probably going to want to look younger, unfortunately. So it's interesting subject matter, especially the history behind it. So let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this subject. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to download Solitaire Grand Harvest for free using my link below or scan the QR code on screen. Join me and the Smurfs and you'll love it.